It's MG back with you, and today we're back on the 79 MGB that we saved. Now we have been thinking about it and we've decided to go with the Green Phoenix as the name for this project. And actually it seems like the name sounded really good, and with what we are going to see in today's video, you'll see it almost kind of foreshadows what could have been on this car. So once we got the dash out, I noticed that some of this wiring had been taped up. Started untaping it, and what we found, a bunch of melty bits here. Don't want to see that. These are all the wires that go to the inertia switch to shut the fuel pump off. So that's fuel pump wiring. But we also noticed that coming back to the ignition switch, it's melted here. Now the white circuit is fuel pump and ignition. And now this side is also melted, but we were already going to replace this anyway. But we also noticed that when, like other wires laying against those got melted, like this one here, this actually goes to the voltage regulator for the gauges. And we got some pinched wires here that's showing some bare wires. Now these are hot all the time, so that's not a good thing to have. Usually on these late harnesses, if you have any melting of wires, it'll be one of these orange or brown wires here. And you'll see down the length of the harness splitting open just like this. This is from getting hot, and it splits the tape there. When you see that, you know wires have been hot down through the length of the harness, and you don't know what's melted down in through there. And I generally recommend replacing the harness once you start seeing that stuff. In addition to the melted wires under there, this whole harness has been recovered in this green electrical tape. And there are a couple other spots like right here where it's starting to melt a little bit. So yeah, this thing's likely going to get a whole new main harness. Now I need to chase the wiring down from here back to double check the fuel pump wiring, because it's had a different pump put in it at some point in time. It's a rotary pump, and I'm going to make sure that it's not drawing enough amperage that it melted any of these wirings going all the way back. If so, then we need more than just a main harness. So I chased the wiring back into the trunk here where it goes to the fuel pump. Now the fuel pump wiring comes here, and the pump usually sticks out here where all the electrical connections are, but since they had put a rotary style pump like this in it, they had actually run it through here and filled it all full of this, what I call dum-dum, which is duct seal. You buy that at the hardware store in the heating and cooling department. It does its job, it keeps the water out. But once I dug all that stuff out, all the wires were crammed up in there, and once I got it apart, this is what we got. It's melted, and the cover is missing all the way back into the harness here. So yeah, it looks like we're putting a rear harness in it as well. And then another thing we found was this pump. I had actually started putting power to the pump to drain the fuel tank so we could take the tank out and clean it, because after looking down inside there, it was pretty dirty inside. Didn't look rusty, but it was dirty inside. And it pumped about a gallon of fuel out and quit working. And now it won't do anything at all, so we're doing a fuel pump as well. Now the inertia switch wouldn't actually like pop or do anything. It was just like stuck in the on position. You couldn't make it trip. And I noticed there was a little bit of bubbling and stuff in it. So I took it apart real quick. If you ever want to know what was inside, this is what's inside. A little metal ball with a magnet there. And when in an accident that pops loose and pops up, knocking this away from being in here, pushes it up through this hole. Well, it turns out this is all melted down inside here and deformed just enough that there's no way this can go up through there. Plus the end here split and from getting hot as well. So This is probably going to end up not having an inertia switch in it unless we decide to put an aftermarket one in. But it's no problem to just put the two wires together. You just don't have an inertia switch to cut the fuel pump off in an accident. All right, as we continue to tear the interior apart, we got the seats all tore down, got all the foams and everything off of it. And these foams actually still felt slightly damp when they come apart. And the backing on the one was actually pretty rotten. It had a mouse nest in it, and it was a bit moldy, and yeah, not very good. Now these seat frames were actually as rusty as any of the ones I've taken apart so far to actually do. This is what you usually would see in a parts car, not in something that was supposedly a runner and driver and generally kept up. But it all works. They move, do all the reclining, everything they need to do. So we're just going to split the two halves, put them in the cabinet, blast them, paint them, and we can rebuild those. We got our door panels here. We got one of them tore apart so that we can pattern it to make new ones. Now, like I said, this is going to be a completely handmade custom interior. Nothing's going to be factory on it. And actually at this point, I don't even know what the design of this is going to be yet. All I know about the interior is the collars, the basic theme and idea of it, and some of the input that I've had on what it's going to look like, but I don't know the final design yet. So I guess I'll be learning about as much about the interior as you are, except for I do have some inside knowledge. So we went ahead and dropped the tank out so that we can properly clean it and get the sending unit out to check it. And what usually happens on these things here is the corners can get rusty right in through here. And in our case, yep, it's rusty. Once I scrape this off, we got a whole line of holes down through here. So it's going to need a new tank as well. So then I got the sending unit out. We didn't know if anything worked, but it's I got the sending unit here, and it's like the wire that goes from here to there to connect it so it can actually get a signal is completely gone. So yeah, we're replacing this as well.